Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our now we can say regular Wednesday stream.
Indeed, we can.
Yes,
Good evening,
yes.
everyone.
Quickly say something while I'm typing refresh in the chat.
I'll see to refresh, but everyone's already listening.
Yeah,
Oh
everyone who
no!
can listening is listening. So now I always put them in the chat because a lot of people will just they'll end up sitting there on
People
like
are they always this late? Come on!
come on, we've been
We know
discussing.
how the rest of the people in this scene work. We're practically early.
No, it's fine. We are actually transmitting and stuff. So I think people are just being silly. Unless it's done that weird thing where it's not started us again, which I hope it hasn't done.
No, I think it will if people are saying hello and whatnot.
Yes. Um. Oh, I guess I'm. There we go. Yes. See,
Okay.
this is why we tell people to refresh.
Indeed.
It's good advice on any stream, by the way. If you're stuck on starting soon, just refresh, and you'll probably get it. Unless you're on AA stream, in which you won't get it because it'll be half an hour because he's crashed and has to make himself a coffee. Yep. But this isn't Le Donk on the Rug Merchant stream. We're here for a specific purpose. But before we get to that, we'll do our regular shilling.
Yes.
We do have links down below. We have our Telegram, which is our more serious kind of place to be.
Yes.
I have a Twitter run by my intern. You're back on Twitter?
I am
back on your old
back
account?
on the Twitters. We've been putting a lot of stuff out on the Substack lately because we've sort of embraced short form writing, which I think is actually doing us wonders. Because it means that we no longer have to, at least, I don't know. I would like to say we're not slacking, but we can maybe sort of throw things together a bit quickly, and then
Yes.
you can have a 600 or 700 word article that really drives home a sort of guiding principle, which I think a lot of people have found rather useful. But as you've said, normally thank everyone that shows up to the streams, especially those people who are either subscribed in the members thing or give us the super chats or the super stickers or maybe
yes,
not.
we're still monetized on YouTube, so there is a way to donate directly if you want to, which is that I haven't managed to set up like a stream elements at the moment. That will be set up at some point, or an entropy. But if you want to get round the YouTube kind of cut, you can just give us directly on PayPal. I'll get notifications to my phone and and my email. Sorry, God, I'm completely clagging up here. And we'll be able to read those off. So that's the way to get round the tax. Yes, avoid the curry tax.
Indeed.
If you want to give directly, we also have you mentioned writing before. We have the anti-politics Substack as people filter in. So we do regular writing there. There'll be an audio version of a video I'll be doing tomorrow with Reactionary Reading Law, who's a good egg. He's a good legal egg, and we're going to go through some of the legal aspects of kind of NGOs like Hope Not Hate, and partially how they get around the law and do things that are,
yes,
in a large part, technically illegal. So,
and I think maybe one last mention of, please do your algorithm summoning rituals in the comments. Your activity and the liking and whatnot is greatly appreciated because it does actually help.
It's the way the game has to be played, unfortunately.
It's not even that like, oh, we need our stuff to be seen by more people. It's we would just like it to be seen by the people who've at least subscribed to it.
Yeah, YouTube has this terrible thing where if you don't interact with content, it stops showing it to you, even if you do watch it.
Yes.
So curry tax, YouTuber shit, all of that stuff.
And don't worry, we're not going to spend the next hour just like glaring and pecking through every detail of the Hope Not Hate report. We're hopefully going to try and maybe place it in a context.
We'll be doing, to use a cringe phrase, more of a meta-analysis. No, we'll be talking around it somewhat because the actual report this year, spoiler alert, is boring as hell and mostly recycled. It's actually terrible.
I think if I had to come up with one word to summarize it, it might be wank.
Yeah, it's I just say padded, really.
Yes.
It's extremely padded, and I think that is for quite a particular reason, which we'll get to. But I don't know. Shall we get kind of straight into it?
Yeah, I think we should.
For those people who don't know who Hope Not Hate are, it is a British government-linked very heavily government linked, we'll come to later, NGO that is supposed to be about tracking the British far right, but also nominally has like an anti-Islamic extremism vertical that's not very big.
Like that it pretends it doesn't have.
Yeah.
But in short, it grew out of what was previously referred to as Searchlight magazine,
Yes.
which was an anti-fascist group started originally in the 70s by a couple of Labour MPs and one something Gabe. We were looking up earlier.
Yes, it's a guy called Jerry Gable.
Jerry Gable, that was it.
We'll get on to some of that background stuff more towards the end, actually, because we'll take you on a bit of a journey first. Because they issue an annual report. It's Hope's Not Hate, State of Hate. 2022, we went over it in relative detail. But what we noticed in there actually was a lot of establishment rhetoric. There was a lot of kind of centered Tory consensus building.
What it was lacking was more some of the sort of leftist ideological positions you would assume to be in a report like this that purports to be from an explicitly anti-fascist organisation.
Yeah.
However, a lot of the critiques seem to be from a liberal position, not a fascist one.
I would argue that the politics, in quotes, of Hope Not Hate is what we would regard here as establishment centrist.
Yes.
What we noticed last year was that they were criticising things in a way that, many members of the Tory party would, or certainly many mainstream members of the Labour Party would. They don't come across as an earnest anti-fascist in quotes organisation.
Nor was it really about taking swipes at the entire right as a whole. It was much more orientated around these people who are out of the acceptable range of where the Tory party sits, and it is these people that is creating voter apathy for people who would normally be conservative voters, and that was the problem.
Yes, they also kind of nibble around the edges and, in very weak terms, try to hold, the fringes of the Conservative Party to account. They're not like full-scale Tory scum, which, again, with the position they're supposed to take, the position that they used to take as Searchlight back in the day, is very, very odd. It's very odd from what people expect from someone like Hope Not Hate. But here's the report. The report itself, like I said, is grossly disappointing. It is mostly, if you watched our video last year, copied and pasted from it, including some bizarre phrases like cordon sanitaire.
Yes.
There's exact phrasing. There's huge amounts of the 2023 report lifted from the 2022 report.
Yep.
It is padded and it feels like a child who's forgotten to do his homework.
Plus like an extra whole 3-4 pages on Andrew Tate for some reason.
Yeah,
there seems to be a bigger element in this one of polling data. That's one of the differences I would say between this one and the one last year.
Well, they're scrabbling for relevance and they're recycling some of the stuff that we talked about in the Security State Comes Home and stuff like that, which is an MI5 / kind of GCHQ report, which is about like the conspiratorial beliefs. It talks about the whole cultural nationalism thing. But a lot of the beliefs in it are beliefs that British Muslims hold, which is funny.
I think this is something AA pointed out, actually, that one of the statistics he uses in Prophets of Doom is listed right in the intro section where they're like, 60 or 70% of Britons don't believe democracy is heading in the right direction or something like that.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Because if you look at the contents of it, it's got obviously overview. It's talking about the recent anti-migrant hotel protests, which is weird because it only happened like a few days before this came out, and a large part of its content is dedicated towards that in places. It does feel like it's been plugged into it, but it also feels like maybe they had a primer this would become a narrative. But apart from that, if there weren't the migrant protests and if there wasn't the Shawcross report to kind of protest about, a lot of it is like weird inside baseball protesting about their apparent loss of position, and a massive. It is like 8 pages of this. It's 132 pages, but a lot of it's padding. So like an 8-pager is quite a lot in this. So you've got 8 pages of Andrew Tate here, which again is weird. It's got a lot of polling data in it. It's very, very light on meat.
Yes, there is no, other than one or two groups, there is really no like in-depth several page study of here's a group, here's what it has actually done.
Yes.
There's very little reference. Most of it's actually knowing if you know what you know about these groups and these individuals, it's actually milk toast.
It's very milk toast.
There's a lot of people in this that are getting kid glove treatment, and we are not sure whether or not that's because some of these groups are being given leeway where they otherwise wouldn't for certain reasons, or because they're basically getting tired of studying the same people. I mean, some of the profiles at the end are like, oh, well, X, Y, or Z person is no longer directly just talking about, race and ethnicity and nationalism. They are instead talking about conspiracy theories, which has led them off down to a path of esotericism.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a way of them saying, well, like, this person isn't really a priority anymore. Even though it used to all be about, look at X, Y, or Z person with their massive platform they're using to radicalize people.
It feels, like I said, it feels like they're scrabbling. It feels like a kid who hasn't done their homework. Of course, we are on constant glow watch here.
Yes.
We'll make the links explicit later. But for those of you who don't know, Hope Not Hate's materials got used by the government. And then the government used the fact that the government used the government's own materials by Hope Not Hate, which is an arm of the government, to then fake reform the government.
Yes.
Many sock puppets going on here.
Mafia investigates mafia, finds mafia innocent.
It's not even that. It's mafia fake investigates mafia, finds mafia should do what mafia now wants to do, kind of thing. It's weird because it's so obvious that Hope Not Hate was deliberately included in those materials. And then it was deliberately included near the end to object to those materials.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, the maneuver that's been done here. You've got Nick Lowe's, who's looking old. He's aged heavily in the past couple of years. He looks terrible. Again, it feels like he's going through the motions here. This is a really, really tired, low-energy report.
But think right. He's writing his editorial section to the start of this. Can we go to the bottom paragraph on this page quickly and then onto the start of it? Last year, 20 people were convicted of far-right terrorism-related offences, up from 18 in 2020. Of those convicted, 9 were teenagers. Now, carry on.
Yeah.
We've had in any 1 year, and 2 were also involved in the conspiracy scene. Again, another first. In addition to those convicted, 66-year-old Andrew Leake killed himself after throwing 3 petrol bombs in an immigration centre in Dover. Front page.
Yeah.
If I ran this, that would be Andrew Leake, Britain's first right-wing suicide bomber.
Yeah.
It would be everywhere over that. But
he's a footnote.
Yeah. And again, when we
he's a footnote when it comes to talking about him too.
Again, we've got the Shawcross report mentioned in here as well, which is basically them getting an absolute bollocking, as we'll get into further.
Well, they as I said to AA and as I said to a few other people, this is a strong indication that Hope Not Hate do no longer have a place at the table, or at least not the same place at the table.
They do not have a position of primacy when it comes to snooping out and investigating the enemy, as it were.
I mean, look how big the Andrew Tate section here. The Andrew Tate section here is as big as the far right terrorism section here. It's as big as the democracy section here. It's huge, and like I said, it's an indication that Hope Not Hate has had their strings cut.
Look at the section of the far right as well. The decline of Brexit tribalism, the passing of COVID-19, declining political trust, and the cost of living crisis has given the far right opportunities to organise they have not had for several years. That was what they said last year.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned one thing about PA, and then Tommy Robinson, who's a non-entity now.
He popped up in Ireland. The actual, considering all the protests they've latched themselves onto, the lack of PA in this is quite striking. I would say that, I don't know, their treatment here is a bit small potatoes, but that's...
But I get the fact that they've then got like a dedicated, a Hope Not Hate poll of 1,200 16 to 24-year-olds found 94% of young people had heard of Andrew Tate, and 67% had watched, listened to, or read something from him.
Yeah, this report focuses more on the Shawcross report on Andrew Tate than it does on, supposedly the headline fascist group in Britain, which is PA. It doesn't.
I
It
like
doesn't track
the
to me.
bottom one there. 61% of Muslim males have the positive view of Tate. It's because he's got mad cars and girls and that, bro.
In it,
In
in it, bro. There's a really low kind of res picture here of one of the protests. Not sure where that one is.
That was the Erskine one.
Yeah, the
you
Erskine
can tell
one.
by the horrible hotel in the background.
Rhetoric, racism, and revolt. The country is in a state of political flux. The far right is becoming increasingly active on the streets. Most worrying, there's increasing symmetry in the narratives and actions between the traditional far right and the more mainstream right. But again, it's
After the most politically febrile year in recent memory.
Febrile.
Fair enough.
It's pronounced febrile. Britain has entered 2022 in a state of turmoil, with 3 prime ministers holding office. It's just kind of going boilerplate.
Continuing fallout from Brexit, the ramifications of the war in Ukraine, the calamitous 44-day administration of Liz Truss. Again, why would they care about framing Liz Truss's term in government as calamitous? Surely it means nothing to them. It's one Tory being replaced with another. Of course,
well, they
talk about
leftists. They talk about drag queen story hour, LGBTQ backlash, polling, people thinking the political system's broken. Again, a lot of this also just feels like the wind up to the putting the woke back in the bottle punch.
Yes.
A lot of this just feels like people are disaffected. All of this is going on. People don't know. Isn't it terrible? Wouldn't it be great if someone came in and did some consensus building, eh? But again, it feels like they've been given some talking points, but have then been left their own devices and also stitched up a bit.
Yeah.
Again, this is a lot more poorly worded, I would say, than last year's report. I feel like somebody's missing from the writing process, maybe?
That, or it's not been given enough of a proper workover.
The new disadvantage, it talks about politicians line their own pockets as Brits go hungry, talking about migrant hotels, inequality, the state of the organised far right. They talk about Tommy Robinson, a little bit about PA. It's all very boilerplate stuff. We will not be like the banner drop stuff. That
was at their yearly camp thing that they're doing.
It kind of just goes on and on and on. Podcasts, and there's not really a lot here worth reading, to be honest with you, in these opening pages.
I'm just wondering what sections we get to, because there's definitely something interesting in the part where they're talking about Michael Gove and a Tory party.
Well, I'll go for a scroll through here and just tell people, look, that a lot of what they're going through is polling data. They're talking about the polling data, how shocking and disaffected people are, and things like that. And it's, again, this is all recycled stuff from a GCHQ report.
Again, though, just these questions are so begging. 20,000 people were asked if they believed a number of common conspiratorial statements. The numbers who claimed to believe these statements were true was alarming. Jewish people have an unhealthy control over the world's banking system. Unhealthy. What does that mean? Why don't they just say over-representative, which would be true? Parts of many European cities are under the control of Sharia law and are no-go zones for non-Muslims. Actually just true.
Yes.
Official count of the Nazi Holocaust is a lie, and the number of Jews killed by the Nazis during World War II has been exaggerated on purpose. No comment. Globalist elites are encouraging immigration into Europe as part of a plot to weaken European identity. I refer you to becoming a minority. No further comment required.
Well, it seems as well, again, this is all recycled. This is all recycled from the report we went through.
How are they meant to do this when 48% of people there are not able to say that that's false?
It's, like I said, they're just going over stuff we thought. State of the nation, this is from ideology to issues, how Britain is changing. This is them doing all, the preamble to the polling stuff, investigations.
This is the...
exposing the secret anti-Muslim group in the heart of Westminster. Again, there's a lot of pro-moderate Islam stuff in here. I'll just double check we've not missed anything. But there's a lot of really, really weird, I would say, attempts to reach out to the Muslim community in this one. It feels like that's where their remit is being shifted to, and a lot of the stuff they've included feel like they had to include it as a matter of course.
It feels like someone said, you've got to take these elements out and shoehorn these ones in instead.
Yeah, the whole...
Lord Pearson of Rannoch, that far-right extremist.
Well, this is just doesn't play particularly well with their traditional audience.
No.
If you're a leftist and you're reading it, you'll be like, what's the pish?
Yeah.
Where's the juicy stuff?
Oh my God, yeah. They're talking about bloody anti-Muslim activist Pamela Geller, who was banned from entering the UK in 2013. They're going to have to go back a decade to come up with nonsense.
Again, these people...
What is this?
Yeah.
The new issues group. I believe for quoting purposes, we can refer to this as the NIG.
Yeah. There's a lot of... One of the funnier things in here is just them talking about the NIG.
I mean, they're talking here about Civitas and the IEA, which we basically covered before as like out-and-out neoliberal like think tanks that support immigration and civil rights.
Yes. Again, this is getting quite off-piste, though, for Hope Not Hate. They're talking about, there's a group of Tory backbenchers who don't particularly like Muslims. Ooh. I don't think that's really going to get them anywhere. Baroness Cox, Lord.
The leadership, the core of the NIG. Baroness Cox, what have they got to say? Her controversial views on Islam and Muslims, as well as her sympathies for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, based, resulted in her invitation to speak at an event in Ottawa being cancelled in the wake of the far-right attack on a mosque in Christchurch. Lord Pearson, who was defected to UKIP, hung about with Geert Wilders, previously called the Quran a fascist book.
Ooh. Well, again, it's people who criticise Islam from essentially a liberal perspective.
I mean, the guy over to the right does actually seem to have said some base things.
Yeah.
Spokesman for the families and children, Craig, who once called quality campaigners the gay staple, also caused outrage in 2018 after branding Asian grooming gangs a holocaust of our daughters, and that the issue could be traced back to Muhammad himself. I mean, that is actually just kind of based for once.
It's pretty good. It's like baseline stuff. You'll hear this stuff in any pub in Britain.
Yeah, but they're trying to pretend that he's part of this Hearts of Oak group.
Yeah.
Which is like some massive anti-Muslim conspiracy theory group, when it's really not. It's actually milquetoast and is probably even more boomerish than something like the traditional Britain group.
It's extremely boomerish.
The earliest was dated November 2012 and included a section titled "Nig To-Do List."
Whereas the Hearts of Oak, our children, our country, it's them going...
Yes, there's bloody Sargon there. His mate Calvin Robinson's on the left.
Dear me. Perhaps the most troubling document acquired, I hope not hit 15 memorandum created by NIG regular... It must know how this titled Combating Islam and the Stealth Jihad. They're basically like talking about a milquetoast boomer quote-unquote anti-jihad, which consists of them sitting around and drinking tea, basically.
And being actually secret Zionists, which, if you look into Searchlight and Hope Not Hate, has had a bizarre of sort of fancy with Zionist groups, which is normally not the thing you would expect from groups that would associate themselves with.
Again, this just keeps going. This is supposed to be like their headline investigation of the Conservative Party.
But it's all like 2017,
2015,
2013, 2014, for Britain folded in 2022. Why are you talking about them then?
A lot of this stuff also is public knowledge.
Yeah, I know.
Like, completely public knowledge. Members of the House of Lords have been collaborating with known far-right and anti-Muslim extremists and opening doors to them, corridors of... Again, they're talking about people like Tommy Robinson. They're talking about, some of the people campaigning against the Rotherham stuff in a more mainstream capacity. It's all of that. Evangelical and conservative Christians concerned about how is the NIG funded? Mostly welfare, but sometimes they'll sell some crap.
Well, that's why they say equal and free there.
Oh dear me! The NIG is a secret organisation. There is no non-profit company or charity registered to its name. It's just stupid. Like this hasn't caused any headlines either.
No, and it's all, as we know, an allusion to the fantasy that is Law and Order.
Yeah.
You know, the rule of law. They're like, oh, one nation, one law. That's never going to be the case. As soon as someone rules over the nation, they are subject to a different law. That's what ruling does.
Genuinely shocked. Again, this is their pivot to market themselves to the moderate Muslims.
Yeah, and then they go on to talk here about like Anne Marie Waters, who
Yeah.
again has basically been a nobody. I mean, where's Britain First these days?
Nowhere. They're talking about stuff that,
especially they name drop Michael Gove on this page as well. I have to admit, I am of the opinion that this stuff is here so that members of this Hearts of Oak group, people, friends of Michael Gove, as it were, can basically turn around, legally challenge these people and give them a big slap and be like, we are BTFOing these militant leftists. We're putting them back in their place.
I have a feeling that this whole thing is going to get them basically slapped down even harder, because they were slapped down as a result of the Shawcross reports. We'll get into it in a sec. But this feels like, one, a non-story, and two, weirdly unnecessary enemy making for people that's essentially supposed to be collaborating.
Unless, of course, that was the purpose.
Yeah, that again, this whole section is just bizarre. It's not like they're inside PA. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on within these supposedly radical groups that is deliberately ridiculous and made to go into reports like this, and it's just not here.
Yep,
it's conspicuous by its absence. Thank you, the Halfling Men, for 9 months. As a secret organization, we can't wait for the 2023 remake of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. titled The Man from Nig. Perfect. But this isn't revelatory.
No.
People have known about Hearts of Oak. People have known about some of the anti kind of Sharia law stuff in the Conservative Party for decades. A lot of this is over a decade old. He talks
the UKIP factor.
They're talking about conservative councillors here, which is, again...
Oh, they try to secretly join Patriotic Alternative. Ooh.
They're talking about councillors, checkered past, blurry tweets. Again, it just keeps...
Oh, here we go, the COVID conspiracies section.
Yeah. Well, the Conservative Studies' long problem with Islamophobia has been well documented. A more recent issue to emerge is extreme anti-vaccine and COVID-related conspiracy theories. It's also milquetoast.
Yeah, it's like the nonsense stuff. Reserves even more fringe content for an alternative account. The handle, scroll up again, sorry.
Yeah.
The handle at Rabbi Yitzhak Zavi Ben Emmanuel, posting in Telegram chats belonging to the anti-Muslim thug Tommy Robinson and others devoted to the chemtrails conspiracy theory.
They're talking about some random person in Tommy Robinson's Telegram.
That's got a funny Jew name.
Yeah, that's talking about chemtrails. This is where we are with these reports now. It's just sad. Again, just following orders, blah blah blah. Essex councillor, somebody making spicy tweets. Q people, party in flux. Is this Lenin's Me Too moment? What?
Oh no. Misogyny inside Lenin's camp.
Dear me. Andrew Tate's arrest and... Again, they're talking about Andrew Tate, English defence lead, Stephen Lennon, leapt to his old friend's defence. Again, they're talking about Tommy Robinson. They're talking about Tommy Robinson and trying to tie him to Andrew Tate. And they're talking about misogyny within the remnants of the ED.
Like, who cares?
Even their own audience doesn't care about this. This is like filler. This is boilerplate filler, and that's the reason we're just going to...
Schizo Lou has checked his $2. Cheers from Venezuela, Uncle Scrump.
Thank you.
You're not allowed to call him that.
Yes. Thank you, Schizo Lou. Thank you for the 12 million bolivars.
Yeah, I know, exactly. The shoebox of money.
Our wheelbarrow will be around shortly to pick up your bolivar notes. Yeah. Hope No Hate really is out of... we're kind of just going through this to show you how out of steam they are.
Yeah.
We're going to get to some of the good... In fact, let me just get past a lot of this. Double standards, Tommy Robinson. Again, there's the massive thing on Andrew Tate, which basically goes nowhere.
Scroll up for a second. There's one part I find funny.
Where's that?
They've got how the international far right has responded to Tate's arrest. Alex Jones, I do not believe the story is true. I do not believe Andrew Tate is a rapist. Candace Owens.
He's taking on the system and they're smashing him.
The fucking picture of Tim Pool as well.
Oh,
I think it's possible he treats women poorly. I don't know. What do I know? It's the media is lies.
It's all of these, like, apart from Alex Jones, who I still have some affection for, fucking Candace Owens, Tommy
They're talking
Containment
about,
Robinson,
like bloody Piers Morgan, uncensored.
Piers Morgan.
By February 2023, Tate's interview with Morgan had received nearly 9 million views.
It's just garbage. They talk about how popular it is in the polls. They talk about, people...
Look at all this data.
Yeah. It's just they've got spreadsheets.
He wants to be real man. He wants men to be real men. Lol.
It's this whole thing.
Cue video of Hispanic bald man dancing very effeminately on the corner bit of a staircase to like Despacito.
Yes, far right and tech. This stuff is where it starts to feel like they're just going through the motions. Twitter welcomes back extremists. You'd think half their report would be about this.
Yeah, and notice how they Hope Not Hate basically made no mention of this.
Yeah.
For weeks and weeks and weeks, and then made mention of it 2 days before this report comes out.
Yeah. Of
which on that day, half of these people from PA and the organisation itself were rebanned.
Yes. Andrew Anglin, Brunjay's Pervert, blah, blah, blah.
Mark Collett, Nick Fuentes, Patrick Casey. Patrick's alright.
That montage, that's terribly cut. Look at that. Ugh. Who built this? It's, again, it feels like all their budget's gone. Deplatforming works. It's...
blue check marks and polls. Ugh.
Ugh, it's awful. Alt tech, again, there's... most of it's, like, bulked out by pictures, and the text is bigger here too. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 paragraphs about Twitter. Look at the bulking here. Look at they don't have enough material.
This reminds me of, and it'll be an article we'll feature in something at a later date. But they put forward in a Guardian article that a subset of people came back. And there was one tweet from one person that had 37 likes that tagged Elon Musk and say, "Be a hero, bring back Mark Collett." And this Guardian article was trying to pretend that this 37 like tweet had somehow inspired Elon Musk to personally, reach out and pull these people back onto Twitter, as if what we say has anything to do with it whatsoever.
Alt tech platforms used by the far right. They talk about BitChute here. BitChute's basically dead.
Yeah, well, the British government made it basically illegal to view.
Basically, this section is almost verbatim recycled.
No mention of Cozy TV in here, though.
No, there's no mention of cozy.gov, no. Which is, again, because
Parler, which is basically a completely defunct psyop. I'm sure it's because...
DLive, Truth Social, Getter, Odyssey, a little bit about it. Again, this is mostly, apart from Odyssey and Truth Social, this is from last year's report.
And even like the part they've got here on Telegram's pretty milquetoast. You think they would mention like all the arrests in Germany or the fact that German government's infiltrated Telegram, but clearly not.
Last year there was also a lot of like dumb, like it was full of like dumb memes.
I did notice they've ripped that out as well.
Yeah, they've taken out the meme section.
Which is the best part.
It's the best bit. It's the most interesting. Again, without the meme section, it's still a bit dry. But anti-LGBTQ, a lot of this is from America, by the way. They're having to like stretch onto America. Look, this is America.
These are American physiognomies.
Yes, that's America. Homosex is a sin. So again, 2 full pages of photos from America.
That are probably from about 2012, judging by the quality and the state address.
Thank you to Aurelian Another Caesar, who remember for 9 months. Thank you. Saying, in prison, I'm known as Bottom G, Andrew Tate. Nice. It's a funny one. But yeah, again, America, Drag Queen Story Hour at...
I know, that's terrible, isn't it?
The formatting is just bad here. It's just, there's just mistakes in this.
Scroll down though here, there's one of the paragraphs I think's hilarious.
Which one?
Gender diversity and LGBT plus rights are understood as weapons to feminize society or to weaken the West by sexualizing children and normalizing paedophilia. Just true.
Yes.
Such conspiracy theories can also bleed into long-standing notions about mass child abuse at the hands of a secret elite satanic cabal tropes that were revitalized via QAnon during the COVID-19 pandemic. That Bart gif of him being like, well, that's a funny thing to say.
Yeah. What a bizarre thing to bring up unprompted. Oh, we'll read the super chats in a second. I'm trying to get again. Formatting terrible.
I know.
Anti-LGBT backlash. Drag queen story hour protests. Drag queens again. America. A lot of this is stuff from America on the streets.
Weird TERF people.
Yeah, they're talking about like weird TERF influencers. And again, it's also extremely like milquetoast and boilerplate.
The campaign against a drag queen story sits at the sharp end of a wider anti-LGBT plus backlash. In the US, the temperature is frighteningly high, with armed far-right groups, Hitler saluting Nazis, and violent thugs making a regular presence, seeming Patriot Front, and they glow like hell.
Yeah.
And you won't name them for some strange reason.
It's, again, there's very little naming in here. A lot of this is focused on the US. There's one mention of the drug.
There's a mention of the fact that PA turned up to some of their ones.
There's one mention of that, and nothing really happened. But that's, again, this all just, it's all telegraphing to me woke going back in the bottle.
Yeah.
Hope not hate being de-emphasized.
Well, there's a thing they put further up here. They're like, well, the Conservative Party is likely to continue on an anti-immigration path or continue to put the hammer on wokeness or some nonsense like that.
Far-right terrorism, some GCHQ knocked up image to recruit people to go to Ukraine.
Yeah, basically.
Far-right, record number of extreme right-wing activists and sympathisers.
Single mention of the Andrew Leake attack in one paragraph.
Yeah, which again should be like it's almost like another Joe Cox there, but he's just disappeared. They talk about the arrests. Most of the arrests are for the fact that a lot of material has been reclassified as terrorist material.
Yeah.
So if you download, like, one of them was just like the Anarchist Cookbook. In fact, I think multiple ones were just the Anarchist Cookbook. And yet they are convicted of far right terrorism. It's them kind of padding the stats. A lot of them are like 16-year-olds.
Weird American mass shooter people who we know for a fact are like absolute feds. Like Pete and Gendron, like Martha Speaks shooter.
Yes, says get entropy so I can properly pay. I've just not had time to set that up, but thank you for the $2.
We are the extremely busy at the moment.
Yeah. The halfling, thank you for the £5. Just seems like they're ban this please Christmas list, except because they are an arm of the powers that be. Elites actually listen to them. Partially,
it's the other way round.
Yeah.
They're painting the targets that elites have already decided they don't want.
That's exactly what it is. Yes, it's very much that way round. But again, we have kind of a right-wing activist, blah 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 blah. Just a whole bunch of just shite here. I'm talking about people who were convicted of anti-Semitic hoax theories and document of stir up racial hatred.
Downloaded the wrong thing on Telegram by accident.
Yeah.
And then, or people who were part of quote unquote active groups, or people who are just like out and out idiots.
Yep. Just like a retard net.
I mean, look at this. Let's just scroll to the top of these pictures and slowly scroll down, and let's see if people can spot the dead-eyed common denominator between them all. I mean, look at this guy. This guy looks like fucking Sid the Sloth.
It's basically a low IQ parade, I'm afraid.
They've got the Alex Davies guy.
Yeah.
Let's scroll up for a second.
Yeah.
They don't mention Patriotic Alternative there in his thing, even though he was part of it. Well, that's interesting.
No, they don't. Andrew Lee commits suicide. This is the only other mention of him as well.
Other than a couple of mentions of him by name. But you think there would be like a whole section dedicated to that, but there isn't.
Right-wing terrorist attack on immigration centre, but very draining the swamp. Again, they're talking about the anti-Islam neoconservative rights taking over the government's counter-terrorism. This is them talking about the Shawcross report, and this is them trying to signal to the moderate Muslims that they're on their side.
Yeah, there has also been fierce debate within the corridors of power and within both main political parties about the remit and direction of Prevent. Even within the Labour administration, which created Prevent in 2007, there were bitterly opposing views over the remit and scope of the programme between then Foreign Secretary and Communities Ministers. Yeah, so what they just having a little section on the fact that no one could agree to the true purpose of Prevent at the time.
Yes. That seems to be it, yes. A crocodile, drain the swamp, blah, blah, blah. There's got Michael Gove here. I think this section especially will get them in trouble.
Yeah.
I also think it's meant to get them in trouble.
Exactly, that was what I was trying to say earlier on.
This feels like them telegraphing part of their own doom. This is them essentially stepping over the line that they were very much towing last year, which is going after sitting MPs, going after, quote-unquote mainstream parts of the Conservative Party. It also builds into the narrative.
Scroll down for a second here. We got interest instead in February 23 was a report written by William Shawcross, former journalist, ex-head of the Charity Commission. Charity Commission, he would be the man that would review something like Hope Not.
Yeah.
And previously director of our old friends at the Henry Jackson Society.
Yes.
Anyone that really knows their stuff and what we've been talking about the last couple of months will know about those folk. Absolutely no coincidence whatsoever going on there. Couldn't be.
A pragmatic versus combative. They basically talk about the fact, this is going to upset the moderate Muslims. The moderate Muslims. Ideological assault on counter-extremism policy designed to dramatically shift the focus of its remit. There's also some embarrassed admission that, they were just silly, and that a bunch of stuff is silly, and they got caught being silly.
Well, that was the whole thing that was going around on Twitter the other day. Yeah. Now, who was the only person that had the source image and shared it first from the Prevent report about, look at all these books that are normal bits of Western canon that are in the,
Who was
Prevent program? Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
Member of the Henry Jackson Society.
Yes. Ooh. Well, we'll be seeing our old friend Murray later on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all very, as we talked about during the stream, when we talked about the Big Brother Watch report, a lot of this is weird stage dialectic. In that their dialectic here is, the poor Muslims, the death of the Islamophobia strategy, blah, 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 prevent, now what prevent, terrorist stats. 49% of terrorism arrests in the year to September 22 were linked to suspected extreme right-wing terrorism. It's the thing that they've been going out and looking for it. Even the report admitted that they've been going out
suspected.
And looking. Yeah.
What about actual convictions?
Yes. They talk about it's damning. It's going to damage the strategy. Again, more polling.
Scroll up a second here. Do they have the thing in there about Shawcross cheerleaders, Dr. Paul Stott, head of security and extremism policy exchange, and formerly of the Henry Jackson Society, writing on the Conservative Home website, he's called for Prevent practitioners to be used in intervening cases like Batley Grammar School, where a small group of Islamists targeted a teacher who initially distributed a picture of Muhammad in a RE lesson, or last year's Lady of Heaven cinema protest and the murder of Glasgow shopkeeper Assad Shah. Yeah, I remember that one. Sunni Muslim guy basically came and cut his head off in his own shop. Again, weird thing for them to mention when they're trying to pretend that there's a moderate element to Islam.
Well, like I said, Hope Not Hate runs a de-radicalization vertical. They're essentially playing consolation to a crowd of people that they are simultaneously shopping into
and
the security
claiming
services.
Prevent should not have a focus based on ideology. It needs to be based in hard evidence and statistics about the threat that violent extremists pose to us. So, looking for extremism using Islam as a filter, as an ideological way of looking at it, that's bad. You shouldn't do that.
Yes.
But no, I was going to just the last paragraph here as well. In claiming to improve Britain's counter-extremism policy, the Shawcross review and the neo-conservatives driving it forward could have exactly the opposite effect. It is a policy that is as reactionary as dangerous, and we could all be paying the cost.
Ooh. I get it. It feels like them whining about the fact that they got caught providing materials and got roundly chewed out for it. Over the next 60 pages, we'll profile the British far right. Again, this section is identical to last year, to a fault.
Other than a brief mention of yours truly.
Yes, we do. This is where we get mentioned, by the way, guys. And our mention, I will say, is grossly disappointing.
Oh, well, it's technically two mentions.
We technically get two mentions, yes. Far right is an umbrella term, but this is basically all the profiles from 2022.
See, it's weird as well. They've got here on the scroll up again. on the third paragraph for this section here,
Yeah.
the radical right accepts the fundamentals of democracy. No, we don't. But rejects certain values of liberal democracy, such as minority rights and pluralism. Many radical right movements and parties are also populist, meaning that they divide society into the pure people and the corrupt elite.
Again, very much like integration stuff for the regime.
The extreme right, which includes Nazis and fascists, fundamentally rejects democracy, popular sovereignty, and majority rule, and may also advocate violence and even terror. That's the other way round.
Yeah, this is the way around.
Your right-wing people who would call themselves Nazis and fascists are the ones that believe in the democratic process and bottom-up revolutions. It's your, like, far right that's, authoritarian or monarchist in a different sense. That's the other way round. It's
populist / radical right.
Yeah.
They profile Farage here in an extremely boring way.
GB News.
Reform UK. Polling predictions. It's fucking nothing.
The Farage supporter.
Yeah. Immigration. 57% of household earners over £100,000 said they consider supporting such a party. Blah, blah, blah. GB News. This is all... Surprise parties are far more likely to believe a number of conspiracy theories. It's all so, like, boomer boilerplate. Breitbart London. Again, they talk about the fact that a lot of these people are extremely diminished. Breitbart UK appears to have just one regular correspondent based in the UK, following the January 2 departure of possibly prominent contributor James Delingpole. And like to break new ground, again, they're reusing the old profiles, but basically admitting, yeah, this is not relevant anymore.
Yeah, Paul Joseph
Again,
Watson.
Paul Joseph Watson. Watson will continue to promote his lucrative line and populist conspiracy theories, but his connection to InfoWars and elite audio might provide a barrier to more mainstream traction. Again,
nothing in there about his weird stuff he's done with women, but fair enough.
They have like a bizarrely positive write-up about like
Carl Benjamin and the Lotus Eaters project is likely to benefit from the reinstatement of the former's account in November 22 and will continue to occupy a sizable space in the anti-woke and libertarian sphere.
They're basically calling him a wet there. Hope Not Hate called you a wet, Carl. You need to respond.
Political light. Never heard of the guy in my puff.
Leave.eu. Hard right. Leave.eu. Again, Reform UK. UKIP. Reform's basically over because they told people to take the vax, and UKIP's been over for a long time.
Because they've got something like basically £3,000 a year to play with and probably about 100 actual paying members.
Yeah, 40 of which showed up to their AGM. It was actually smaller than all of our known ones. Reform UK. Again, there's a lot of polling stuff in here. And it's all boilerplate. They don't really say anything.
Heritage Party, Turning Point UK, Reclaim Party and Lawrence Fox.
Again, it's all just
the Mallards.
Yeah, the Mallards in here for some reason. You know, that publication you basically got banned from Twitter for criticising almost.
And also, like, they decided to suspend one of the things I was going to write for them because I was promoting violence or something like that. And then they proceeded to have someone else write a very similar thing about 8 or 9 months later.
They've disappeared off everyone's radar. I think people wouldn't be like, oh, you're talking bad about our allies. They would just say they're a bunch of wets who want to be in the Conservative Party.
It's kind of funny as well. It's like in November 22, it published an extreme guest column by regular Lotus Eaters contributor B.B. Dade. Never heard the guy.
Well, they're basically being propped up by Raheem Kassam, who's basically just a dirty Asian. To be brutally honest,
he wants to claim Enoch Powell for himself.
Yeah, he's from what I've heard, he's also a greasy fucker.
It was also because they're like, oh, he's connected to far right MAGA influencer Jack Posobiec, who's also an ex FBI.
Absolutely fuck operative. Those people. Fuck the post millennial. All of that shit is terrible. Yeah,
Unheard, Mallard, they can all
fucking swivel.
Awful. What are their prospects? The Mallard will remain a fringe outlet that caters to a particular breed of young conservatives with wants to become part of the furniture. Another bit on GB News they've got there.
Yeah, it's all so, again, Proud Boys, Britannia, what the fuck? English Constitution Party, they're all nobodies. GB News, channeling negativity. Polling, GB News, polling. Nigel Farage, polling. It's just conspiracy. Ooh.
But they've had to make this stuff themed around titles to pad out what would probably be like 30 pages of like personal profiles.
There's no memes.
Yeah.
There's basically just like sub Guardian reader tier level criticism of GB News and Farage. There's right said Fred here, talking about the conspiracy stuff. Again, broadening focus, conspiracy. David Icke.
The Light, the UNN folk.
Yeah. It's just conspiracy. They talk about
really unflattering picture of Delingpole where it looks like he's got AIDS.
Yeah, they talk about him having the Delingpod, former Telegraph. Delingpole's embrace of increasingly anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
Yeah, he's basically walked back most of the positions he took up in 2021 and 2022 and now sits and slightly pushes bloody Toby Young on his own podcast.
Ah, well. Piers Corbyn, all of this stuff is just... It's just boilerplate criticism of the UK conspiracy scene.
UK column folk who are just like
again
a news thing.
We're 86 pages through here.
Yeah,
and
they've got
there's fucking nothing.
Nick unwashed dude who's a fucking weirdo. It's basically like, aye.
Yeah, I've never heard of a lot of these people. Keep Talking, Alpha Team, Conservative Woman.
Bruh, this stuff that gets written for conservative women's garbage.
It's just guff. Yeah, where's V? Falling down the root. AI picture of a fucking rabbit, which is terrible, but again, they're talking about conspiracy. More
directly from
the GCHQ report and recycled from the other page as well. This is the same image we've seen before. Again, padding.
Overlapping conspiratorial views.
Anti-migrant activism. Here we get to some of the more recent stuff, which you'd think would be the bulk of this report, but it's not.
No.
It's mostly far-right harassment of migrant accommodation doubles in 2022. They write what could have been like an anti-migrant protest. They map a few of them out. This basically just feels like a recycled...
Scroll up here again. Now, they say that... what was that? 50s, or sorry, is it 14 or 56 of these events were supposedly carried out by PA? Now
that isn't true.
No, because if you go on to certain channels on Telegram at the moment, they'll be telling you that, well, these people from PA and these other groups are showing up to events that the local community has organised.
Yes.
And then they are bringing the police with them, essentially.
A lot of the PA stuff is them latching on to either local protests or protests where nobody quite knows who's organised it. I've said that to people, but if somebody you don't know tells you to go to some kind of in-person march, one, check out to make sure it's actually licensed, otherwise you will just get arrested. And yes, you have to license protests in the UK, that's where we are. And two, a lot of that will get you facial recognition software used on you. Like, do not go to in-person quote-unquote protests. You know, this is why we host private events with security and policies.
Yes.
Do not go to these protests. Don't do it. You need a license to protest, but you will be profiled by the police, and if something goes wrong, you will be picked up by the police, and they will try and pressure you into informing. It is like a funnel to that pipeline, and it functionally does nothing walking around with a banner. Don't go to these protests.
No,
they are a trap. Yeah, and PA won't help bail you out either.
No, they won't. That's funny that they send all these young men to protests and then don't give them legal support. Hey ho. Andrew Leake may have acted alone. More again, these slight references to this guy again, but no section dedicated to the whole event.
We should help our homes. It's basically anti-migrant, anti-Muslim. They're talking about the Britain First,
which again is pretty much defunct, and also seems to be completely tearing apart from inside as Paul Golden and Jada Franson fall out about numerous different legal things.
Yes, Britain First is a dead campaign. 2023. Britain First is best known far-right activist conservative. In fact, unlike the change in 2023, despite poor results of actually local elections, Britain First activists mean it is unlikely to see rapid growth. Again, they don't mention the fact that basically Britain First is defunct.
Yeah. Big section on Tommy
Robinson, who is a complete non-entity in the political sphere. More of Tommy Robinson, ongoing issues. Severely diminished figure, yes. I was categorized as a failure. He is a shadow of his former self. That's just kind of true. Team Tommy again. What the fuck is this? None of these people are relevant, even in these spheres. Hearts of Oak. They're recycling their own stuff. For Britain. Again, NC Islam stuff. Voice of Wales. No, students.
Oh Jesus, the Student Against Tyranny people.
Active Patriots. Steve Laws.
Guy that does like the film when the boats arriving, I believe.
Yes. Again, a lot of this is just them trying to profile the nominal, again, more Tommy Robinson pictures. Them trying to basically catalog the has-beens, really, of a lot of the quote-unquote anti-immigration stuff. Little Boats, Hugh Thorne.
Well, a large number of these are just like Telegram and Facebook pages for boomers.
Yes, they are. A lot of this is just like weird boomer core stuff in which people are being funneled. Oh, picture of a migrant boat. That's it. There's not very much relevant here. Again, there's just so much dedicated to these weird Patriots of Britain, Justice for Women and Children.
Northeast Infidels, Democratic Football Lads Alliance.
The last vestiges. There's maybe like 20 people in a lot of these. Of like the hardcore hooligan groups, in quotes. A lot of which are just police operations. Holocaust denial. Like weird European intellectuals who may have got in trouble for David Irving, again, Vincent Renard. It's just, again, it's fucking nothing. Castle Hill Publishers. Identarianism. Here we get into something. Identity England, Local Matters, Greater Identitarian Legion. Most of these are weird Euro offshoots.
Well, Identity England, as far as I can tell, is just a Telegram page for the most part.
Yes, and a lot of these also have like the smaller ones have like weird Fed operation, completely plastered over them. Nazi and fascist. Here we go. Here's their PA vertical, which is very boilerplate. This is basically anything you could read about PA in any newspaper. And it is also it's 2 pages long and is padded with very large images.
You would think for Britain's premier fascist organisation, they would be able to come up with a good bit of stuff to cover that isn't just regurgitated.
They've wrote a lot more about Tommy Robinson and about Andrew Tate.
And Michael
Gove. There's pages of this Hearts of Oak, Nigger Lion stuff.
Well, it's like they've got a bit in here. In 2021, we warned of a more radical breakaway from PA's Scottish branch, a prediction that manifested last October when a cluster of former activists and associates formed the openly neo-Nazi Highland Division, some of whom swiftly received visits from law enforcement. Yeah, because they were diddies and they ran about putting stickers and it was like Aberdeen and Inverness and Dundee about like Europa the Last Battle and Holocaust revisionism sites.
Yeah, they just did sticker campaigns. That's the radical action that they took. Nazi and fascist. Again, the 2023 prospects, highly active but desperate for relevancy outside of the political fringes. It's just...
I mean, they do mention that there's folk waiting for trials, but the details seem a bit sparse in certain elements.
I honestly feel like this whole thing's a holding pattern. And we'll maybe get to some of that at another point. Independent nationalist network stuff, never really seen them. Highland Division they talk about again. Claymore books, Katie Fanning, no idea who that is.
Is that Bubba Kate versus Estate Woman or something?
Oh.
Who does a lot of beefing with PA, I believe, or at least has done the last wee while.
Ugh.
The Claymore books folk, yeah, it's Kenny Smith who runs the Scottish PA stuff, and they basically don't seem to actually do much.
No, I don't think
that's a common theme, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
White Stag, the weird fitness club thing that seemed to be just glowing from the day it started. Four Virtues Club, never heard of it, to be honest. Vanguard Britannica, weird group that just appeared on Telegram this year and seems to be working with the Patriot Front of all people.
It's kind of weird, yeah. Not quite sure about them.
Then you've got New British Union, which Jess was talking about the other day. It's literally one guy, and it's been him on his own for the last about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, there's no...
He's just some weirdo that's obsessed with Mosley.
Again, White Lives Matter England, which isn't a thing.
Northwest Infidels, again.
Not a thing.
Well, no, it's more just that they've already mentioned these
I know,
people.
yeah, but again, they're recycling and it's not a thing.
British Democrat people, which I don't quite understand at all, and again, just seems to be for boomers.
Traditional Britain Group. There's a little bit about them here, but I they seem well intentioned, but they also have a lot of I would say Mumsnet people.
Yes.
I found that their kind of spaces are a little bit poorly policed, and they were slightly me. I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence with
Yeah,
the Traditional Britain Group
it was
people. I'm
when
not going to
we
speak bad of them.
no, no, it was just when we tried to advertise our event where there are people we had people saying, "Who do you work for?
Yeah, and
Why are you part of the New World Order?"
well, somebody said we were part of the New World Order because our program had a QR code on the back that linked to our website, and they consider that evidence of the NWO. Again, here's where we get into some weird stuff because they talk about Morgoth here, who they've had in a lot of previous editions because he basically was one of the only like high-profile British, super far-right intellectuals. But he's talking about here that Morgoth will continue to serve as a respected thought leader for the overtly racist and the British far right, but his philosophical and conspiratorial musings may not appeal to those initially attracted to his more extreme radical politics. They talk about how he's basically gone down like the COVID-19 technocratic dictatorship stuff, in that he's talking about a lot of the same stuff we are now.
Yeah.
They almost seem disappointed that he's not like being a caricature and goose stepping around. He's being a lot more thoughtful, which is I'm enjoying Morgoth's most recent output. He sometimes links our stuff. He gets it. He definitely does. But it's weird that they talk about him here almost like they have to.
Yeah.
They just all of this feels like they have to talk about it.
Then we've got below that I think we could maybe say friend of the channel.
Yeah, he's been on a few times. He'll be on again. Millennial Woes is here. They basically talk about his YouTube account going down and the weird fake sexual assault allegations. Remained a diminished figure for the far right in 2022. Aside from a weekly video on Odyssey and a rare public appearance in October with an invite to speak at a far right fringe conference. This is the first reference to us, by the way.
Hello.
Put ends in the chat for Nomos, please.
Yes.
Can we have some ends in the chat for Nomos?
Yeah, his only major burst of activity came in December with the annual Millennial series of live streams, which saw him interviewing 60 far-right influencers.
Again, that's us.
Hello. One notable omission from this year's lineup was Mark Collett, leader of Patriotic Alternative, whose awkward 2021 appearance does not seem to have resolved the tensions between the two.
I'm seeing a whole lot of ends. Thank you guys.
But they then go on here. Robert Citizen is unlikely to salvage his much tarnished reputation diminished in 2023. Absolutely untrue.
No, he's been
Since basically mid 2022. He's made a screaming comeback.
He's been doing really well, and again, he's kind of done what Morgoth has done slightly in that it's broadened out in terms of some of the subject matter, which is good.
Well, it's something we've directly talked about and with
Yes.
on the channel, which I think is a very interesting thing to that sort of just coming out of pure ethno-nationalism, the same way people like ourselves sort of came out of libertarianism.
Yes, it's not one single thing. There's a very nice confluence of ideas coming together. But it was nice seeing Woes in October. And for those wondering, yes, there will be No Moss tickets on sale tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. I'll be announcing them on all our good platforms. Edward Dutton here. Again, boilerplate. Dutton will continue producing racist content for a small but international audience. That's all I really have to say. The reality reports. I don't really know who they are. Talks about Daughter of Albion here for some reason. Level appears to have taken a step back from her active content creation but likely remain on the periphery. Again, it feels like they're cataloging all these people that we kind of know a little bit for like the sake of it.
Yeah,
Raw
and they've
Egg
got,
Nationalist is in here even.
They got the Judgment Zone, which is like some fitness group Charlie Big Potatoes used to run, I believe.
Yes.
Which is basically probably a way for just him to get pictures of young men. That's a different discussion.
Yes.
Then we've got another friend of the channel, Navina Pavarotti.
Here we have the rug merchant himself. They misattribute him here. He was actually talking about whites in this section, which makes it funnier. He says that he argued that white people in the US were conquered and don't deserve to survive following the murder of George Floyd, which is a very, I don't know, once you realize the perspective he's talking about that from and the fact that he's talking about like white people.
See,
like,
I love
kneeling
the
before,
I love the
black people,
advert
it's
as well.
pretty
Though.
based.
the next paragraph is actually like marketing. All it should say, like on the last sentence, is "by the populist delusion."
Yes.
Parvini has monetized his commentary on current far-right topics and sells premium subscriptions with additional content. While his degrees and academic work are all in the area of literature, he sells online courses to his followers in the areas of economics and politics, as well as writing, all available on the academic agency. Of course.
Yes, we have to advertise it. Buy a course.
Parvini spoke at a range of conferences organised in 2022, and these include the Traditional Britain Group, Nomos in London, alongside Colin Robertson, aka Millennial Woes, and Shieldings alongside Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad and Curtis Yarvin. And of course, if Nick Lowell and the team at Hope Not Hate are listening, we at Nomos are just a petty little capitalist operation looking to take advantage of these ideological
Parvini
radicals.
will continue to produce video content and speaking. See, from here down, this feels like a boilerplate, like newspaper profile of AA.
Yeah.
It is weird in its neutrality and in its boredom with its own subject matter. Merit! Yes. I mean, we get mentioned here, but we get mentioned offhand. It's almost insulting, you know.
Well, no, that's what I mean. I think they look at people like us as if we're like, promoters of like, and no offense to them, but like Dank or Sargon events. Where they're working with some other people who are used to doing like bigger showbiz stuff, and they're just there to make money, which is totally what we're doing as well. We promise.
Yes, Heritage and Destiny, Candor. Again, they basically talk about the fact that Candor magazine doesn't
Heritage
exist.
and Destiny glows like hell.
Yeah, and Candor magazine, it's like a photocopied thing. This is a pitch from like the 90s. It's just all this stuff is like.
You've got the Actros people that do the really good. Versions of Evola stuff.
Yes. Publisher. Again, there's no. Actors will continue to be one of the leading far-right publishers in the world, producing high-quality products. Producing high-quality. Is this an advert? What is going on here? I didn't notice that.
I did see.
It's like those Actos folks. They may be fascist, but they sure can bind a buck. Damn.
Yeah.
It's.
Well, look, scroll up at the other one as well here, though.
Black hair.
No, the one above that.
Yeah.
Stephen Book's League of St. George. Look at the bottom section. Each year that the League of St. George continues to exist as a surprise, it will almost certainly die out along with its last activist.
Yeah, it's just, again, 1974 by former members of Edward Moses Union movement. It's all like super duper.
The Goyim Defence League guy who's supposedly an out-and-out Fed.
The National Front? What? The BNP? What year is this?
Yeah, British Freedom Party with bloody Jada Franson.
Oh, God. Jada Franson? I can't get over...
Combat
18!
We're fully...
nostalgia
Phil
pill.
Phoenix Nights.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, well, that bloody gig at Combat 18.
Unless the group can fill some of the void left by Blood and Honor's decline. And it again, they almost feel disappointed by their own report in all of this. It's bizarre. It's almost like they're selling the fact that like fascism in Britain does not exist and has not existed and basically cannot exist because it's no. And then there's a bit about Northern Ireland which doesn't.
Oh, there we go. The murals.
Yeah, the murals. That again, you will find here that the report is bizarrely threadbare in many aspects. It does mention us twice, but in offhand ways. And it mostly waffles on about Islam, small bits of the Tory party, Andrew Tate, and fucking
Defunct
Mr. Yaxley Lennon.
and defunct groups that no one is part of.
I knew it would be bad, but I cannot stress to you how not worth this is reading yourselves. We tried to make it entertaining, but good lord. We're not done yet, by the way. We've got a lot of analysis, because really this is more of a meta discussion. I think we've gone a bit long on the reading there.
Yeah, possibly. I suppose we've made it all the way through, which is going to easily inform the other stuff. So we'll go to the half hour.
As I said,
here or
Hope
something.
Not Hate seems to be just going through the motions in most of this. We'll be going on for a bit longer here. Well, quite a bit longer, actually. If it weren't for like the migrant protest and Shawcross report stuff, they just have published last year's report with Andrew Tate in it. I think this tells us that criticism of the far right from the left has basically run its course. It will not be part of the mainstream dialectic. They are preaching to the choir and increasingly straying into establishment territory, which they aren't supposed to do. The centre-right will now be the place criticism comes from. See the reaction to the migrant protests. Despite being Britain's go-to anti-racism charity quoted in the media throughout all these protests, it seems like a shell of its former self, with its materials being used as fodder for the Shawcross report. We went over one of those articles in the last stream, so I'm not. I'll tell you what. I guess I can quickly get it on screen. Again, there's a mention here. A senior researcher at the anti-racism charity Hope Not Hate. They get quoted a lot in newspapers, but just like a paragraph. They're like a weird
That's from the
auto include.
That's from the Knowsley protest thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They're like a bizarre like auto include, and it feels like again they're just going through the motions. It's very very like zombie organization almost now. But in terms of the Jacob Rees-Mogg stuff, it says Mr. Shawcross also revealed that training material for a workshop about the extreme right wing profiled Nigel Farage's Brexit party, known as Reform UK, and included a pro-Brexit and centre-right commentators. Those on the course were handed an essay by the Hope Not Hate campaign group, which flagged up columns by Douglas Murray at the Spectator magazine, Rod Little at the Sunday Times, and Melanie Phillips at the Times. Mr. Little told the Mail on Sunday, "It's an absurdity, an absolute absurdity, that people who might read my column are in danger of being radicalised." Mr. Murray said, "The idea that mainstream writers like me would be used for this cynical counterweight exercise is sickening." Because, of course, he's a bit of a wet. A lot of a wet. But again, it's a lot of these people were the ones handed the materials from the Shawcross report, the reading list and all that stuff you've been told to be outraged about as part of this new dialectic. It seems that Hope Not Hate are becoming the villains in their own story, or at least are becoming an organization which is somewhat of an anachronism.
Live long enough to become part of the regime or get burned in one of its PR operations.
Well, the whole point is that we'll go back into a little bit of history here with Hope Not Hate. Hope Not Hate is an offshoot of a group
called Searchlight.
Yes.
And Searchlight, as I mentioned earlier on, was started originally as a magazine by a couple of members of the Labour Party in the 1970s, along with an individual we might talk slightly more about. One, I keep forgetting his name now, Jerry Gable.
Yes.
The intention was for it to be a sort of anti-fascist, anti-racist sort of organisation. They were going out of their way to... in 1974 and 5, one of their big reports was on the National Front, and then they kind of fell to the wayside a bit. And then in the 90s, they tried to launch a campaign against a number of prominent Tory members, again, for some sort of anti-Muslim thing, for which they were very heavily slapped down with, it seems, at the time.
Yes, they
At
were.
least in the press, they were slapped down. They never seemed to get too much of a actual legal hammering. But...
To go back into some of the history of Hope Not Hate, they're funded by donations, charitable trusts, almost exclusive by charitable trusts.
Large amounts of it are also trade unions.
Yeah, trade union funding and individual donations. The trade union funding part is quite controversial.
Well, Unison as well, which is the biggest union in Britain, I believe.
Basically part of the Labour Party. Hope Not Hate receives no funding from the government or EU, except for when they did. During late 2012 and early 2013, the Searchlight Educational Trust, which later renamed itself the Hope Not Hate, received 3 separate payments totaling £66,000 thanks to a funding agreement signed by the Department for Communications and Local Government. Conditions in the funding agreement prohibited the funds to be spent on anything other than educational work. The focus of the allocated funds was to establish a community partnership in 4 key areas that were prone to EDL activity.
Well, look at the sentence you've missed there, though.
Yeah.
Other than educational work, which also included a prohibition on political campaigning. That's given to a group who previously made their fame by trying to expose and basically dox BNP members when they were about to have one of their most successful runs at election.
Well, they also went on to campaign against UKIP, which is illegal for a charity to do. That they are very clearly a political organisation, but a captured political organisation, as seen by how close to they are to the government. But that's not as telling as the article here on Searchlight. Searchlight, like you said, was founded...
There's I was actually going to go to the third paragraph there, which is quite interesting, and I think probably one of the more telling ones. It's
Yeah.
not, but in the Luddimer years,
Yeah.
that one there. In the Luddimer years, Searchlight had a close relationship with CARF, Campaign Against Racism and Fascism, a magazine published by the London Anti-Racist Anti-Fascist Coordinating Committee, a federation of the anti-fascist committees that sprung up all over London in the mid-1970s. CARF merged with Searchlight in 1979, becoming an insert with separable editorial control at the back of the magazine, but this arrangement ended following disagreements in the early 1990s over allegations that Searchlight was promoting pro-Zionist, pro-Israeli groups who the CARF collective regarded as racists. So, this Jerry Gable guy, who seems to be one of the main people behind this, because the Labour Party members that were behind it seemed to disappear off shortly after in the 70s.
Yeah.
He's a leftist, at least ideologically, it would
Yeah.
seem, but an ardent Zionist, to the extent that other leftists turn around and say, that's weird.
Well, there's the whole thing. They got into a spat with the BNP, who they basically tried to like harass members of. And the Charity Commission in 2003 came out. There was no action taken against Searchlight, which there should have been. They should have been shut down as a charity. But they were basically told to wind their neck in slightly.
Yeah. Searchlight was consequently divided into three main bodies: Searchlight Magazine, the monthly anti-fascist and anti-racist magazine; Searchlight Information Services, a research and investigatory body which briefs governments, politicians, journalists, and the police. So it doesn't get funded by them, but it briefs them.
And then gets paid for it.
Searchlight Educational Trust, a charity devoted to challenging and defeating extremism, racism, and fascism. The two of these later joined the Hope Not Hate campaign and are no longer associated with Searchlight Magazine. Since Searchlight split with Hope Not Hate in September 2011, Searchlight has opposed cooperation with the state.
That's a really funny thing there. There's a lot of articles. I'm not going to go over them because they're terrible, like leftist articles that waffle on a lot. But there's a lot of talk about the fact that Hope Not Hate collaborates incredibly heavily with the state. As we saw with the Shawcross report, it collaborated and was used in the Prevent materials and Prevent campaign. And it also has extremely close links with many NGOs, charities, and other bodies that are both funded and promoted by the British state.
Well, I mean, there's another mention on this Wikipedia page as well as the fact that, and a number of these groups in the National Front and the BNP and whatnot, they had their own informants.
Yes.
That's a strange campaign for a charity to be running.
Well, publisher Jerry Gable is known to have links with MI5. His leaked 1997 London Weekend Television memo stated that he had given names I acquired to be checked out by British French security services. A 1987 profile referred to Gable's wide range of contacts, including police, people in the security services. So Searchlight Magazine, who Hope Not Hate split from, was already essentially a government informant program. So here we see it here, but Hope Not Hate became even closer to the government, to the point that Searchlight Magazine, who was run by an MI5 informant, said that they had too obvious a links to the state. So I think this should very, very clearly talk you through how Hope Not Hate is not a fringe leftist organization at all. It pretends to be one, but it is wholly captured completely by the British state and security services.
And I think you can further prove that with the fact if you go to the other page we've got there, which is just a collection of stuff from Companies House and Charity Commission data, that there are organisations paying on their own up to £400,000 a year. And then if you look at some of the entrants as well, we've got Trust for London, which may as well just be Sadiq Khan himself putting 30-40 grand in Nick Lowell's back pocket.
Yeah.
The funding is for the extension of a secondment to the GLA Social Integration Team to undertake voter registration and other civic engagement work. Now, is that not explicitly political?
It is explicitly political.
Which I know is you're going to handle with reactionary reading law tomorrow, how it is they actually get away with this stuff.
Trust for London again. Trust for London.
Paul Hamlin Foundation, £275,000 to co-produce, pilot and deliver a project in 3 towns to address feelings of loss and economic decline that are associated with people who have migrated to the UK.
Yeah, Bedfordshire and Luton Community Foundation. Again, there's so much here Unbound Philanthropy, Barrow Cadbury Trust. They're basically funded almost entirely by the UK government or other large kind of like Soros Foundation
And
style charitable funds.
if you scroll up as well, you'll see that especially since about 2016 through to 2020, we don't have stuff for 2021 and 2022
No.
in full, but they were churning through about £1 million a year for an organisation that employs 13 people.
Yes. And they don't, as far as I can tell, actually do anything apart from their like reporting. They don't seem to have, as we've seen in the report, many quote unquote infiltrators. They are recycling things from the newspapers in a very boilerplate manner. And it's weird that one, they have this reputation for being the go-to anti-racist organization, and two, how closely they seem to play ball with whatever narrative is being put forward by the UK government to an extreme degree. I think like the quote unquote meta-analysis, I hate that word, but the meta-analysis here really is the fact that Hope Not Hate are going to probably play a diminished role and are going to be a very important part of performatively putting the woke back in the bottle.
I see someone in the comments here. I like me some 90% in quotes unspecified income.
Yep. Lovely. Sources of income. Unspecified income.
Specified grants, £750,000 of a year.
Yeah, it's all become specified grants. Yeah, previously it was just basically unspecified income, but I think they had to.
They've had to at least officialize some of it.
Yes. Unspecified grants, unspecified grants, but basically we can tell where a lot of these grants come from. The grants are from here. If you look at here, basically is their entire funding base. It's at least a quarter, if not 3/4, of its funding base comes from these very large organizations, and it's you've got half of their funding here from 3 big charitable trusts, and it's all cyclic money from all these kind of Soros style NGO people that themselves, you'll find most of their money is either maintained by or comes from the government. A lot of these charitable trusts, in quotes, the pots that set them first up, are long gone. So that's an overview of how Hope Not Hate functions, and an overview really of what we think is the very clear pattern that they will play: 1, a diminished role, and 2, will continue to essentially toe the line with the establishment because they are part and parcel of the British establishment.
Yes.
And it's become even more clear now that they've slightly had their strings cut that they just don't function. They don't do anything, they don't say anything, and they have produced a report which is frankly embarrassing even by their own standards.
Yeah, no, it's to a certain extent you expect better. You expect there to be some kind of like scintillating display. I mean, of course they're gonna lie and take things out of context, but you'd expect them to like go for the jugular.
Yes.
On certain people in certain groups who have maybe overstepped what they should have done or what they should have said or who they should be associating themselves with. I mean, there is a number of occasions in this report where there are things that we know from people who are our friends or we know internally from other groups that really should have been made mention in some of these profiles, and it isn't. It's like, well, is the £1 million a year being totally frittered away, or is someone telling them, here's what you print and here's what you don't print? Which would be the obvious.
I think that there is going to be a large outpouring of both information and clamping down on quote-unquote fascist groups here in the UK. And I think that it will have to come from the quote-unquote centre-right. It will come from people like Michael Gove.
Well, that was...
And people like Jacob Rees-Mogg.
That was something I actually explained briefly on Pete Q's show a wee while ago when we were doing some of the Bowden speeches, that the left seeks power by policing its own extremes.
Yes.
The right does the same. They don't want to allow, Keir Starmer under the guise of Tony Blair to be the person that shuts down the right. They want it to be their own, so they show that they can control their own fringe. I mean, that's again what Starmer and Blair have done, is they've taken momentum, squashed it and shown their base that we control our party, not the radical element.
There's going to be, like I said, a huge amount of false consensus building, which will be the watchword. Really, will be consensus. It will be, a return to sane politics. All of this is going to be the talking
It'll be
point.
A neutrally framed move against all variants of extremism.
What they're going to do is, and here's the maneuver, and when it happens, you can quote us, is they're going to shut down a lot of the kind of drag queen story hour style stuff, or at least they're going to shut down the most visible elements of it and keep it out of the media. But in return, as part of the compromise, they're going to have to get rid of the quote-unquote radical fringe.
Yeah.
They're going to have to further make it unacceptable to speak out on mass immigration. Or at least you're going to have to speak out about it in an integration framework
this is
way.
The exact same point I made in my Substack post the other day. That when you clamour for, free speech, you're not going to get it, because the argument is always going to be that the average person isn't free to speak while extremists like us have a voice. And that goes for both left and right in this whole cancelling culture war waste of time that people are engaging in.
The people who will call for you to be put in the boxcars the hardest will not be the left.
No.
It will be the anti-SJWs, and it will be the mainstream Tories. They will turn around and say that you people over there are the embarrassing fringe. The woke stuff is diminished now. There's no need for you, basically.
Indeed.
That is the maneuver. And if you're not prepared for it, then get prepared for it. That's we've been saying this for quite a while. I'd say we've been saying this through most of the life of our channel, especially since the Tilting at Rainbow stream that we did. If you guys want to go back and check that out, but it really is going to be a big filter, I think, and people need to hold firm through it. But both the Shawcross report, I think some of the GCHQ stuff we've seen, this Hope Not Hate report, it's all telegraphing that position. It's all coming from the fact that the Tory party is advertising the fact that MI5, GCHQ, and the Prevent program have got their ducks in order, and they're no longer prioritizing, in quotes, silly things like, reading lists and Jacob Rees-Mogg. They're going after the
real extremists.
Yeah, the real extremists. And anyone in Britain who is still speaking out in basically a non-controlled manner about a whole array of subjects will be put under that umbrella. Because if you've seen, when they pretend to be diminishing something, they're actually increasing it.
Yes.
And
they're drawing a new line to where it can, be accepted.
We have not, as I thought, seen the internal chat of MI5 and GCHQ of cultural nationalists break that kind of internal talk containment. And I now think that will be continued to be used on the back end rather than the front end. And there will be a whole host of documents that will refer to people in basically terroristic terms, but avoid the sacred cows of the establishment deliberately. It is not a way of
create a narrower and more controlled window of dissent, as it were.
By defining what right-wing terrorism isn't, you also define what right-wing terrorism is.
Yes.
And they have moved that line radically in a direction of inclusion of more people and inclusion of more ideas. And that's the maneuver that people, haven't really cottoned onto, especially with like the Big Brother Watch and Shawcross report stuff.
Yes.
They're saying that, Douglas Murray is the edge of what is permissible. But anything past that,
any radical framing outside of liberal democracy becomes the problem, no matter what it is.
And they, as you saw in the Hope Not Hate thing, they frame opposition to democracy as the most extreme position you can take, regardless of the other beliefs around it. And I believe that's a window into what's coming. But don't be surprised if you don't see much of Hope But Not Hate anymore. They really do seem to be a absolute shell of their former selves. They can't even make fun of memes properly.
We would be very surprised if they were not to be wound down over the next couple of years and basically replaced with some kind of new, I don't know, some sort of standards and practices.
What's the conservative one called again? There's one that's explicitly a conservative one that's like Hope Not Hate. People keep talking about it, but it's not quite materialized yet. Does anyone remember what it's called? That there's a conservative equivalent of Hope Not Hate, but I can't for the
In the
life.
meantime, Spasticus Autisticus. I
Thank you.
had Hope Not Hate speak in my school at the height of UKIP when I was a teen. The education telling a story about a fictional young white man joining UKIP, which radicalized him into being a murderer.
Yeah, that's a lot of that's what they did. But again, that stuff has served its purpose, and I believe it's been put back in the bottle as evidenced by that report.
Mm.
I can't remember what they're called. They're so irrelevant though, and I don't think they'll be the ones to do it. But there are equivalents on the right who are moving towards that position, and that's really where it'll all come from. It will be kind of the Conservatives need to get themselves in order kind of thing.
Mm.
But thank you guys for coming. I will shill very quickly again the anti-politics Substack. You should read our writing. We put out 2 things a week, and there'll be probably an audio thing over there tomorrow and a video over here.
If you are going to or are interested in coming to Nomos,
Yeah.
have a look at hotels, go talk to people in the Discord or the Telegram, organize Airbnbs, and make sure to buy your tickets early. Because like every time we get 2 or 3 days before the event's out, we've maybe got 1, 2 tickets left, and all of a sudden we get a dozen people who are like, "Oh, can I buy one on the door? Can I, I know my friend let me know, and oh no, we're gonna come now this weekend." And as much as we would like to accommodate everyone, the way the venues work and the way that we book them, there is a subset or is a certain subset of tickets we cannot offer more than that. So if you really want to go, make sure to keep an eye on your email and on the community posts and the channel and our Twitter and the Telegram and elsewhere. Because when the link's out for it tomorrow, we'll be sure to share it everywhere.
Yeah, there'll be a link tomorrow. Do check it out then. But I will tell people that if they are interested in just it's going to be the 26th and 27th of
May.
Yes,
and it'll be in central Manchester.
Yes. So if you guys do want to come, again, that's some early information. That's like that. We've only just kind of confirmed a lot of the aspects of it properly, but we will be able to start selling tickets tomorrow. So do look out for those. And there'll probably be an announcement video maybe a couple of days after, because I want to give a few people a bit of a chance to buy tickets, because we have quite a loyal core audience, I will say.
Is there only one event this year? No, I think we might try a smaller scale thing, maybe slightly further away towards the end of the year, but
we'll see.
Yeah, we need to get there first.
These things coalesce as they coalesce. We don't have super duper long-term grand plans because we can't.
No.
Purely due to our availability, other people's availability, and having to be flexible. So we tend to like to keep these planned maybe about 3 months out at the most.
Click the like button and join the Black Hand.
Basically, again, thank you everyone who donated. Thank you guys. Thank you to our members. Thank you to everyone who watched. It is helpful. We've had quite a good run here on the channel. So yeah, you guys are pretty cool. Keep doing what you're doing. Have a good night.
And we'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday. Well, that was very consistently